Hi, I'm Landscaper, and this is the Wannabe Composer series. I'm doing a little special today as I am meeting with the director of an upcoming show called The Sweet Science of Bruising. There you are. So we're just going to have a chinwag about what Anya's got in mind for the show, and then what we're going to compose and hopefully pull out, and I shall give you some videos on the end results as we go. But anyway, hello.
Good morning.
Right?
I'm good now. I've had my cup of tea.
Yeah, right. That's it. I'm still going. Trying to warm up. It's very cold today, and we're both very tired for various different reasons.
Yes.
I'd love to say working too hard, but mine was just up with my son all night. So there you go. What are you going to do? Anyway, right. So this is it. I don't know if that's a close up. Who knows? I'm too far away from the camera. Just got the thumbs up from Steve, the cameraman. Right. So chat to me about the show. So
yes.
Why did you decide to do it? What's it about?
So it's about a very real phenomenon, which was the rise of female boxing in Victorian London. But it's a fictionalised story the.
But actually, this was quite a big thing.
Yeah. So female boxing's been around a lot longer than the Victorian times, but it was always. It was still illegal in the Victorian times, but it was it was very, very...
something that men do. I mean,
it was very, very underground.
Yeah.
But in the
Which is kind of hilarious, right? You think that the women's boxing has to do with the underground, right?
That was it was seen as very salacious and risky, and so people would it would happen.
Doesn't look like she's got her ankles out though.
No. I mean, they didn't. When I've actually looked at the historical costumes, to be fair, actually, they had boots similar to actually what modern boxing boot shoes are, but they did wear the big bustled skirts and the tops because at most you would get a bloomer set, which was the most kind of practical, I guess, of them. And there's even pictures of the women in heels, doing.
That's impressive in itself.
Very impressive. So they. It always existed, but it was very underground. And in the Victorian times, people started to photograph the female boxers. They started to get nicknames. They started to be fight posters about them, and they started to fight in actual boxing rings. Usually when the law wasn't looking. So that was a very real thing. And I think at this time in the boxing era, in the Victorian era, boxing started to be seen as a bit more of a serious sport in general. Okay. So people would kind of go to see, they called it pugilism. They would go to kind of watch the pugilists. And so it was a very real phenomenon. And I think what she's done is she's used real women that existed as the influence, but she's created a story about 4 fictional women, and called Violet, Matty, Anna and Polly. And essentially it looks at the reasons why they enter into boxing, their journey once they start.
Them into wanting to do.
And I think she uses boxing as a lens to explore some of the issues women faced at the time. Yeah. And then there's some calls to how that reflects today.
Right, okay, yes, the similarities in today's society versus...
Yes, so it's all written in a very modern way. Right. But one thing that I've noticed as well is it's almost written a bit in the format of like a Victorian melodrama.
Okay.
But whereas the Victorian melodramas tended to be centred on men, she centred the stories on the women.
Okay, nice. Okay.
So it's very larger than these women go through terrible things, and there's lots of convoluted soap opera-like relationships, and but it's a really it's just really tender at times as well, and the main core of it is the relationship of these 4 women with each other. Yeah. And there is a professor who's like he's the fight coordinator, the guy who presents the fights, a bit of a ringleader. But even he is a bit of an outcast because, spoiler, he is closeted homosexual in the Victorian times. So he also is having to kind of hide a big part of himself. And his relationship with the women is explored a lot as well. And then there are obviously the men in their lives and the kind of family members in their lives around the outside. Okay. So, that's what the story's about. And the reason I was drawn to it, so I was actually given the script by a friend to read, and it's... First of all, it's really exciting. There's so much that is like fight choreo in it, and physical movement sequences.
yeah.
Yeah, so I just instantly, as soon as I was reading it, I was like, oh, and then I could do that visually, and then they could, you know, and I saw the stage and the set kind of come into my mind.
Amazing.
And I think it would be really cool to put something on that is really physical and I've got lots of moments in it where I really want to show the women kind of, I guess, female rage, which is something that is still even today a bit shied away from.
Right.
You know, like showing women on stage just like screaming and like, you know, going for it. And then there's something quite liberating about that.
Yeah.
And also it's a very well written script.
Nice.
And it is quite shocking. It's got moments, it's dances between quite comical and light and that melodrama feel to then suddenly hitting you in the face with, and then this terrible thing happens to this woman, bang.
Right, yeah, you're not suspecting it kind of thing. Yeah, I love those kind of twists, because you see them in certain TV shows, don't you, in certain films and things like that, where it's just you'll be jogging along going, oh yes, this is pleasant, and all of a sudden something, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And they're really fun. Musically, they're really fun to work around, obviously.
Yeah.
So, okay, yeah.
And so I think it was just, I just thought it was something a bit different. Yeah. It was something interesting. Nice. And I've never done, obviously I did Machinal, and that had quite physical, but I've never done something with fight choreo, and I wanted the challenge, so I think that's why I chose it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I'm thoroughly looking forward to getting involved in it. It looks fantastic. So we did work on a project before called Machinal. Machinal, we kind of did, it was more of a soundscape, wasn't it, really? Rather than kind of traditional music as such.
Yeah.
It was a soundscape to kind of complement the action and build up suspense. How did you think that process went?
I loved it. I loved the and I always knew I wanted a soundscape because Sophie Treadwell, the writer, it was written in like the 1920s and it's expressionist.
Yeah.
So the whole thing about it was everything was taking an emotion or a thought and then kind of putting it into its most heightened form.
Yeah.
So the dialogue was very fast and it was it was slightly abstract, and the dialogue itself had a natural rhythm to it, a natural kind of musicality.
And that creates the tension, doesn't it, and the flow within the scenes.
Yes.
You feel it sort of build and build and build and peak and then drop.
Yeah.
Which is great fun to do.
And I definitely wanted, something I'm continuing with this as well. I think it works really well in lots of plays, but I personally don't like blackout scene changes. So I don't like scene, blackout, new scene. I like to try and do stuff with scene changes. So with Machinal, we actually had plays within a play for the scene changes and sequences.
It makes it a little more fluid sometimes.
And the music was a big part of that because it continued, like one scene's soundscape transitioned into the scene change. Like we had sirens which turned into like a jazz hi-hat, and we had the ocean which turned into, I think if I remember it was I know it was a few years ago, but we had things like Screaming Baby that and turned into an ocean, clocks ticking, and so
because I was thinking about some of this with this is that actually are we going to use kind of standard you would associate with boxing sound effects, so ding ding, you've got the bells and various things like that, or punch bags and that kind of stuff. Are we looking to use some of that? Are we going to go for a soundscape, or are we going to go for, say, themes for the individual people, or a combination of the two, music meets soundscape, in and out?
I think it will be a combination of music meets soundscape. The difference, so Machinal was basically, other than a few key moments of silence and the one scene that I wanted acoustic music because I felt that was important for the...
felt live,
it was
in that particular scene.
All music, it was constant, underlaying the whole thing was the sound, and the sound took the audience on a journey. And I want the same thing here, but I'm going to have moments where there is no sound. Yeah. So it's going to be a bit more traditional music, if you like, but with some soundscape elements. Sound effects, I'm thinking, so things like punching bags, we've actually going to have a real punching bag that they're going to lay into. Yeah. The bell is going to be a handheld, the referee will. Okay. So some of it will be done...
Because I was going to say, I don't really know, like period Victorian era, did they use the same sort of bells that we're familiar with now, right? So
I think it would have been a manual.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a number of things I was thinking, with the sound effects and the music. Are we looking at era specific? Are we sticking to like a Victoriana?
So
we go on. Yeah.
This is where. So the set is. We've had lots of back and forth on the set, me and the set crew, and we've come up with. Essentially, you've got the main stage, you've got two thrusts, and then you've got the boxing ring in the middle. Okay. And I'm playing with the idea of whether the audience will be face on or slightly around the ring. Okay. There are pros and cons to both. And then on the main stage, we're going to have no curtains, no wings, just stripped completely back. And there's going to be...
Oh, goodness me, excuse me. Sorry.
It's all right. Bless you in advance. We're going to have like a is it called a trapeze shape? Like scaffold. Okay, yeah. Where... and panels of like doors, windows, fronts, curtains that get hung, and various kind of set
places you're in.
Yeah, and we're gonna have bits of set dressing, and we're gonna have like blocks and levels and stairs. So it's got like a Victoriana feel, but it's deconstructed.
Yes, okay.
So
quite minimalist.
Yeah, and gonna dress up using a basic scaffold, and there's gonna be some, like obviously it's a hanging window. It's not attached to anything. So there's an element of it kind of almost being stripped back. Yeah. So once we decided on that, I thought, I'd love to play with that in the costumes and the music. Okay, yeah. So
is that are you doing that for sort of keep it bleak or keep the focus on the action, or it's just a style that you like, or? So
I think it was a combination of lots of things. One was the play moves, each scene moves really quickly between each other, and it moves location very quickly. Right, and so I want
long-winded set changes would detracts from the
big clunky
pace.
set. I did kind of, my original design was like a really complex big set where bits pulled out and kind of put back together, and you know there were realistic shop fronts. And then I thought actually there was something about it that made the women and the actors on stage seem small.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, actually, you know, I want the action and what's happening.
Really wanting to tell, I guess.
Yeah, and I thought, and I wanted the set. I've always had very clear. I want instead of kind of having space for a scene change between scenes, the scene will move with them.
Okay,
so as they're acting, the scenery around them will transition. So I wanted it to be something that wouldn't distract from what's going on. Yeah. So there was some technical kind of, you know, elements.
That's tricky, isn't it, right? As soon as someone, you know, a set crew walks on stage or whatever, you know, you're going to have that, I suppose, unless you're engrossed enough in the action. And I would assume that after a short while, the audience would just, you know, you would get used to
they would adjust.
The style that you're watching, I would say.
But I want the actors to do as much of the changes as possible as well. And so I think one element of it was the practical side, and the other element of it is once we looked at this deconstructed kind of set, some things came to mind. One, then the boxing ring is the centre focus, because that's the most intricate kind of front-facing thing. And secondly, it kind of played into really nicely, I think, the way that the script feels, in that, as I said, it's written with a cadence of like a Victorian melodrama, but it's very modern language. It's got those kind of modern moments of like in your face shock, you know, and they, even though it's referencing Victorian boxing, they've got like elements of quite modern things in there. So for example, when he introduces the women, although it doesn't say it in the stage directions, I can't help but envision like a boxing walk-on, you know?
Right.
And so
that's what we're used to seeing now.
Exactly. And I think, and right at the end, they very directly reference that it's a fight that's ongoing, like basically in the dialogue. So I think when I actually looked at the script, I thought the whole kind of deconstructing it, stripping it back, having it reference Victoriana period but also be quite timeless works. So I'm thinking with the music and the costume, having elements of that in there. So I think definitely I want to keep most of it looking at like Victorian period instruments, Victorian period music, but have elements that come in that are modern, or with the whole deconstruction thing where the music kind of falls apart, comes out of sync, comes out of time.
You could have the instruments slowly, you know, breaking down or whatever at different specific points to fit the action and what's going on. So,
and I think maybe as it kind of, some of the fights as well, we can try things and see if it works, but I'm wondering, do we bring in a little bit of electric instrument, a little bit of a modern drum, you know, like just things that we can play with?
Yeah, because also when you're doing stuff for an audience of now, it's there is an element of, unless you are going to watch a specific period drama that is set there, sounds like there, looks like there, all that sort of thing, you can kind of have some fun with it. So what was the Roman one? Britannia.
Okay.
Have you guys seen Britannia?
I haven't seen Britannia.
Right, fair enough. Well, anyway, it's set in, you know, Britain where the Romans are invading, but it's all 60s rock and roll. Is the music score, right?
Oh, interesting.
And it works really well.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like there are certain things where it's like, we're not going for a period drama, so you can choose something else. But anyway, for this,
definitely. And I mean, I'm bringing stuff in, like one of the fight sequences is going to be done using tableaus. So the lights come up, they're in still frame. The lights come up, they're in still frame. And some of those tableaus, I'm going to reference modern boxing iconic images. So Muhammad Ali you know, standing over Fraser, and so and have those, you know, a Tyson picture, you know, like, and have those references.
The one where he bites the guy's ear off.
No, not that one. But like, have the women posing in these traditionally very masculine, iconic boxing pictures,
people pick up
and hoping they do. I mean, you know, we might not have many people who are interested in boxing, but
Rocky theme in.
I don't think the Rocky theme. That might be a bit too on the nose.
Yeah, a bit too obvious.
But I think using Victoriana instruments with like maybe some small moments of some electric or some modern coming in, and then playing with like traditional Victorian music like waltzes and other things I've been listening to a lot is like carnival music, Victorian carnival music, you know, like with the chimes because I think especially for like the professor character who's the kind of the ringmaster who coordinates.
So this was something I was going to say. You want specific themes for specific characters, so I think it'd be really nice to have the 4 main characters have their obvious. So you know, like we done before, but I either tend to give a character an instrument or a theme, one or the other. You know, that's more subliminal when you give them an instrument. No one really sort of picks up on it, but it's every time such and such comes on, it's a woodwind instrument, whatever, you know. So you're quite keen on people having their kind of undertow theme.
I'm quite keen on that. Yeah, okay. I think I'd actually extend it to the professor character as well, so it'd be the 5. Okay. And I think, am I okay to say reference? You said Britannia, so am I okay to say references? So you know, like.
Don't sue us.
So with like, okay, so the music for Game of Thrones, for example.
You can't say that. Music for Game of Thrones.
You had, we'll ignore season 8. Sorry, I can't say that probably, but you had like the theme of the Starks, the theme of the Lannisters, but each time it would be slightly different. So like when it's more somber or they might, and sometimes he would bring like the central theme in, and my music knowledge is much more limited than yours, but he might play it in a minor key than a major key, or he might so there are nodes of it, but it's not like the exact same piece of music every time they come on.
But they're just something in the brain you recognise.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing with Machinal, it was almost like you need most of the soundscape to sit away from the listener. This is a weird thing to say, but a lot of the stuff that you do musically, you almost don't want people to notice unless it's intentional. And also with the points of silence. So when you only score like a little bit of a show, you know, this little scene change or this little thing, it's a nice little filler. But when you actually score the majority of the show, silence makes such a larger impact, right?
Yeah, which is why I love having music and soundscapes so prominent in shows, because I think you can play with silence in a really interesting way. And there's something quite vulnerable about silence when people are accustomed to hearing noise.
You just get used to it, you know, there should be something there,
Like there's a moment in the play where it's right at the end of Act 1, and there's a physical moment where one of the actresses is on their own, and I've choreographed this kind of physical sequence where they're almost dancing alone on the stage. And I've got and it tells the story without words of their thoughts and feelings and emotions around so they're a sex worker. So it's all around like transitioning from using their body for others' pleasure to suddenly using it for fighting, and what does that mean? And like, so I want the actor to have this like kind of dialogue on the stage physically, and that's an example of like I really want to work with you on, do we score it or do we have it silent?
I mean, I always figure with those things, it's better to score it and then ditch the score if you don't need it. Depending on like flow state of working, usually it's easier if you're in the flow state of working for me in the studio, then it's easier to actually make all the stuff and then drop it than it is to come back to it, say a month later. I've got to get back to it.
I always feel really bad though, because you create this beautiful piece of music and then if we don't use it.
I think like ultimately, the older I get, the more I realise that you don't be precious about it. It's for the end result is the goal, right? Not for me to say, well, no, I wrote this beautiful piece of music. And sometimes it does. Sometimes I will spend, days on a piece and then it gets dropped. And you're like, okay, that's just how it is.
It's the nature of it. But it would be good to score it, because then I think as well it gives the actor something to practice to.
Yeah, and also rhythmically, you may want to have that even. Oh no, that's a bit too far. But I was thinking, even if they learnt the rhythm and then you dropped it, that might still, you'd still feel the rhythm.
Yeah.
Or you can do some stuff with filters as well, so you could almost have it start with, and then you filter it. Like a low pass, high pass filter, whatever. goes right into the...
Oh, that's nice.
You've
Yeah.
got to remember
Yeah.
should have written it down. I've got a pen and paper. I haven't written a damn thing down, but there you go.
So yeah, I think definitely playing with themes and motifs that kind of follow their journey. So, you know, you might have something that's a bit more upbeat at the start, something that then, you know, kind of goes...
More.
Like one example is Polly. She's a bit of a live wire. She's a Yorkshire pit lass.
Right, yeah.
And she's always been scrapping and fighting, but like she's then taught how to do it in a kind of staged pugilist way. And she starts off, you know, full of energy, and then she ends up quite sickly. Things kind of fall apart for her.
Right.
And then again, spoiler, you know, she finds out she's pregnant at the end.
Okay.
So that's quite a journey.
Yeah.
So I was thinking something like that, for example, you could have like quite a high energy, quite a major key, you know, quite positive motif that then
Slowly
as she gets
breaks down
iller,
or slowly changes
that
or
whole
slows down.
that whole
drops.
deconstructed thing where it starts to kind of come out of sync and fall apart. And
Yeah, I can do some of that. I mean, because you can do some certain syncopations where it feels really awkward. So if you go off the beat or you go even off a note, you know, even if you pitch correct in a certain way, it really jars the brain, you know. And again, if you come out of a bit that you're not really paying attention to, the music's just playing away or the audio's just playing away, and then all of a sudden this thing happens, you know, where it's offbeat, so all of a sudden you're drawn to that, and it makes you feel uncomfortable.
Sorry, you've just actually, like, I've just realised, so I've got a lighting meeting also this week.
Right.
And what I'm going to talk with the lighting technician about is I really want to have moments where when the women feel those big emotions that were so repressed in Victorian times, there's like a flash of light and like a flash of colour that kind of comes very quickly, like as they kind of lash out or they have that moment of just, we could do something similar with music.
Yeah, and so the thing with, you know, as you know, like live theatre music is it's so different to TV or film, because TV or film you've got your, you know, there are your seconds. You know exactly the point where that happens. You know, it's easy to set up. With theatre, it's so much harder. So any of the soundscapes kind of have to run all the way through, and then you almost need a separate channel for sound effects or whatever that you're going to drop in there.
Yeah.
So that it can be, you know, trigger points, but they have to work together, which is always a bit of a challenge. But then, you know,
we did the same thing for Machinal.
exactly
I remember,
right. So
I remember it was a chat. You know, the amount of times that you came along to rehearsals and you would watch, and the whole thing that you had planned was like 3 minutes out of sync. And then as the actors got more and more confident, you would add those extra 3 minutes, and then you'd come back and then you'd have to cut them again. You know, and it was. I remember the process.
It's almost like I've now learned, having done it for so long, I've now learned that I'm like, you know, I'm going to put a question mark by that, because I think it probably will work in a way. Next time. It doesn't quite now.
And then it's always nice, I think what we did as a solution in Machinal, which is something that is to kind of do again, is I think you always left a few extra, because live theatre, things can go wrong, you know, and then you just had ways of transitioning and fading into the next thing if the time wasn't used up, which I think worked really well, because it gave the actors some breathing room as well. Like, they're not having to be on the beat for everything the whole time, you know.
Which is another sort of stress you don't really want to add to another. You don't really want them to have to think about that bit of it unless it's specific. So yeah, nice.
Yeah, I have other ideas as well. Like so the same the sex worker character Matilda. She ends up taking over kind of from the professor and running fights.
Okay.
So
right.
I was thinking, if there's a way of if the professor's going to have that kind of carnival feel, is there a way of bringing some elements of that in for Matilda? So I think there's lots we can do.
Crossing the two together, I like that.
With the storytelling of the play. And there will be some sound effects, like crowds during the fights and things. Victorian sirens for like police arriving and things like that. So there will be some elements. Playing with nature sounds, so like just the sound. Because again, something else we did in Machinal I thought was really effective. Sometimes when the soundscape would cut out and you just have the waves, or you just have the wind. I felt that worked really well. So.
Brilliant. All right, and we'll use the same format that we used before, which is just a spreadsheet which lists, pages, what happens at specific points, lines it triggers on, all that kind of stuff. And we'll put that up and we'll work together with that.
And that was really helpful as well because it was a working document. So because it was live as well, if I added a comment, I could just message you and go, see document.
Yeah.
You could see it, you could write back. And it was a really good way of,
brilliant.
so happy to do that again.
Excellent.
Excited to work with you again.
Wicked, looking forward to it. All right, thank you, Anna. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That is the Sweet Science of Bruising, which we will be working through in the upcoming weeks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.